And a little bit about Amanda. Our speaker today is Amanda Redwine, a licensed mental health counselor with a master's in mental health counseling from Lamar University and an MBA from Indiana University, for any of the Bobby Knight fans. That's not
I was
written
there in the chair drilling area.
After nearly 2 decades working as an accountant, Amanda made a powerful career shift to counseling, where she now helps individuals, couples, and families navigate life's most personal and complex challenges. She specializes in working with teens and young adults, particularly those who identify on the LGBTQIA+ spectrum, and has extensive experience supporting clients exploring or navigating gender identity. Amanda is known for her approachable, no-nonsense style, grounded in empathy and attachment theory. She creates a calm, safe space where clients feel truly seen and supported. Please welcome Amanda.
I'm so excited to be here. This is a topic I'm really passionate about. So first I have to ask, are there any neurobiologists in the group? Okay, good. All right, the parliamentarian's not here, so now we can really get kooky. Okay, so I'm excited to talk to you about gender identity in 2025. And I will start with the fact that I am not a trans person. I treat a lot of trans people. So I got involved in speaking about this because another group couldn't find a trans person. And I said, well, I think it's important enough that I will speak about it. So I don't pretend to have personal experience other than having loved multiple people who experienced this. So fair warning for those of you that are delicate, I might use some anatomically correct terms. So if that's a problem, prepare yourselves emotionally. Okay, let's start with most common claim. There's just 2 genders. It's just bad science. If it's true, somebody should tell the 5 million Americans, 2% of the population worldwide, who have some form of intersex condition. The most common of these, and I'm going to butcher all these names, is called congenital adrenal hyperplasia, which is a chromosomal female born with ambiguous external genitalia, like an enlarged clitoris that resembles a small penis and fused labia. Those individuals still have ovaries, a uterus, and a vagina. Without surgical correction, fused labia can cause menstrual blood to get trapped inside the body at puberty, which leads to serious health issues and infertility. These issues most often get identified at birth and are corrected at birth. That's going to be important later when we talk about health care and gender-affirming care on minors, because the statistics that you hear, many of those are performed on babies. Other intersex conditions might include androgen insensitivity syndrome, which is where someone is chromosomally male but appears female and has internal testes instead of ovaries. Another is 5-alpha reductase deficiency and mixed gonadal dysgenesis. God, I don't have to say this every day. Both of these result in ambiguous genitals and mixed internal anatomy. The rarest one is called ovotesticular disorder, which is where individuals are born with both ovarian and testicular tissue. But genitourinary organ differences are just the tip of the iceberg. When we study gender in other parts of the body, we find noticeable differences in brain development. The men are going to love this. Male brains are on average 10% larger. Females, however, have more connections between the 2 hemispheres and use both sides concurrently more frequently. Males tend to rely a little more heavily on the left hemisphere. Males have larger amygdalas, which is the brain's first alert system, while females have stronger connections between their amygdala and their prefrontal cortex, which is where empathy and compassion live. Hormone exposure during pregnancy has a lot to do with brain development. Testosterone can be linked to spatial skills and aggression. Estrogen might enhance verbal memory and social cognition. So if you're looking for clear-cut biology, you will not find it. Science is messy, and biology rarely gives us absolutes. So unless you have examined a person's chromosomes, their physical anatomy, and scanned their brain, you don't get to assume anything about their biological sex. It's vastly more complex than penis or vagina. Let's talk about gender identity. So gender is a social construct, which means it changes over time. It's changed in your lifetimes. Remember, ladies, when you were a little girl and you had to start wearing a shirt and the boys you were playing with didn't? Or how women shoulder about 70% of the household labor, although when you ask men, they will tell you they do 50%. Culture defines our gender roles, and they're different across the world, which also means they're not absolute. Some cultures are matrilineal, which is where the property passes through the daughters, not the sons. In the North American Iroquois, it was the clan mothers who were powerful. They chose and advised the male chiefs. They controlled agriculture and they had all the political power. Here in the United States, 29% of our members of Congress are female. Only about a third of federal judges are female. Fortune 500 CEOs, 10% are female. The chair of the board of directors of those same corporations, only 7% female. So there's gender bias that occurs just within the two-gender model. Never mind the more loosely defined gray area like gender fluidity. Gender isn't a binary, it's a spectrum. And there's so much more to it than what someone has in their hands. Some current cultural issues that you probably know about, but I want to make sure I read you the numbers because it kind of blew my mind. So there are about 1.3 million people serving in the military in the United States. Among those, we estimate there are about 15,000 who identify with gender dysphoria. It's about 1% of the total military force. 2 days ago, the U.S. Supreme Court said that the armed forces can discharge those members who identify with gender dysphoria while the litigation makes its way through the courts. It means they can be discharged. It also means that new applicants can be denied and free, despite their willingness and ability to serve. It's not only ridiculously discriminatory, with no basis for avoiding harm, it's bad business. The cost to recruit and train those replacement troops will be $75,000 a head. Not to mention the cost of sending those discharged home and relocating others to replace them. What's worse is that 3/4 of those service members have more than 10 years of honorable service, which means that the cost of that brain drain approaches $15 billion. The lost investment in chasing after those 15,000 soldiers, that cost is nearly $50 per American to enact this ridiculous policy change. Americans are complaining about egg prices. They have no idea what costs these discriminatory policies will create for every one of us. It's a political red herring intended to inflame and separate us, distracting us from real issues like healthcare, Social Security, and education. Here in Florida, recently, a 20-year-old white trans woman named Marcy Reinken was arrested here in Florida in the state capitol for washing her hands in the women's restroom and praying the rosary. I forgot that. She had notified lawmakers in advance. She had provided her identification. She respectfully used the facility to wash her hands and was charged with trespassing and spent the night in a male jail. She is faced with up to a year in jail. It wasn't a stunt. It was a peaceful, intentional act that highlights the real human impact of anti-trans legislation. Her arrest isn't about bathrooms. It's about public humiliation, criminalization, and the policing of identity. Lastly, I want to talk about the medical realities of gender-affirming care. That's a headline you'll hear a lot. So let's bust some myths there too. Hormone therapy is the most common gender-affirming intervention, and it is partially or fully reversible. Only between 1% and 8% of people who start hormone therapy later stop, and it's not because of regret, it's because of lack of support or access. Top surgery, which is chest masculinization or breast augmentation, is sought by between 20 and 50% of people, of trans individuals. Here in Florida, that costs about $8,000, and it's not covered by insurance. It's all out of pocket. Bottom surgery is far less common. It has much greater risks and higher costs. But let's talk about minors, because these are the headlines that you're hearing, that there are doctors out performing willy-nilly gender reassignment. In 2022, in America, there were 6,000 breast surgeries that were performed on minors. However, 90% of those were performed on cisgender males to remove man boobs for aesthetic reasons, not to support their gender identity. Only a tiny fraction, fewer than 180 surgeries nationwide per year on breasts, are gender-affirming surgeries on minors, and they're performed with parental consent and paid for out of pocket. By comparison, 35 million aesthetic procedures were performed in 2023, and you helped pay for 20,000 penis pumps to be installed annually to improve sexual performance. So, priorities. How can you be supportive? Trans people have a suicide rate 9 times that of their peers. It's not because they're confused. It's because they face systemic rejection, isolation, and violence, often from those closest to them. In the state capitol building, they have to walk half a mile to find a restroom that it is safe for them to use. No one chooses to be transgender for attention. Being trans can mean losing your job, your family, or your home. It takes tremendous courage just to exist in public, just to go to the grocery store. Though I'm not transgender myself, I have had the privilege and the honor of walking alongside many individuals in my practice. And they've helped me to understand that I could never relate to the experience of looking in the mirror and feeling as though my own body parts were wrong or didn't represent who I am. The good news is I don't have to understand it. I don't have to relate to it. I can empathize and support these folks. If someone asks you to use their pronouns or their chosen name, just do it. Hard stop. You don't have a right to speak about someone else's truth. Some of us like pineapple on pizza. I don't eat anchovies. You don't have any inherent authority to limit their freedom of expression. I personally am finished begging people to be kind or Christ-like. You either are or you are not. All people are safe with me, and that's all I control. Thank you for having me. I can't wait to answer your questions.
Thank you.
I promise you cannot offend me or shock me or scare me. Hit me.
Can I get a copy of that research, please?
Yes, of course.
I'd
Absolutely.
like to spread the word in the Hispanic community because they are talking about that all the time. They're
About the
blaming the
Caribbean
Democratic Party that we are allowing this to happen in the society that we're in.
Mhm.
I would like to spread the word that you're wrong.
Yes, I will happily send you the citations.
Appreciate it.
Best way to educate people.
You know, is just to talk about it. I'm married to a woman. I was married to a man. He felt naked on our coworker. Now I'm married to a woman. Long story. I used to say we should invite the Boy Scouts, the council, to our house for Friday night game night so they could see how incredibly boring we actually are. It is almost impossible to hate someone that you have taken the trouble to get to know. In my work as a therapist, I see people behind their masks, and every one of them there's not a cell in their bodies that's unlovable. They make some dumb choices. But simply that experience of, I met someone, and that wasn't my experience, right? And hopefully you can get to meet someone from the trans community. I'm reluctant to push my trans friends and neighbors to stand up for themselves. They have enough. So I use my privilege to speak for them. But I encourage you, if my guess is if they have the courage to present openly, that they would be open to your questions, because your questions are coming from a place of curiosity, not judgment.
I have a question. When you work with families, how do you encourage family members to be open to what it could be a fear within them or something that is distasteful to them? How do you do that?
I wish I could say successfully. On the whole, when parents show up in a way that they find it very hard to support their trans kids, it's really hard to break them out of that. So I usually start with education around the first steps of transition are often reversible. If your kid wants to experiment with clothing or outward appearance, usually with minors, I'll say don't cut your bits off. I don't care who you fall naked on, practice safe sex, right? Like, the discussion I usually have with parents is about the suicide rate and about the fact that if you had a kid who was born without an arm, you would figure out a way to accommodate for that.
Mm-hmm.
You showed up at the delivery room ready to be a parent. You don't get to pick the kid you get.
That's true.
I'm just going to say how I think.
Sure.
Like my husband say, we have so many friends, Latino friends, that they don't want to be part of, they don't want this kind of people. And me, Annie, what I say to them is, you know what? In Spanish, the word is more hard. If you don't want them or you don't like them, it's not. I don't care what you think. If you are going to treat them bad in front of me, we are going to have problems because we are all humans. You are humans. You feel pain. You have red blood like me. Maybe you see blue, but what came out is red. But if you want to treat this kind of people like trash, but the trash people are you. And you are not going to be my friends. You are not going to be allowed to go to my house. I don't want you near of me. And if you are not going to change your mind, I'm so sorry, bye-bye. And I say bye-bye, piojito. Piojito is the thing that you have in your hair when some,
Nice.
bye-bye, piojito. I don't want you to be near of me, or don't treat my people, because they are human like you and like me. I'm not going to allow nobody to treat the people like that bad.
That means the
No, because
world.
when we allow people to do this kind of stuff, bad stuff, to hurt another person that didn't do nothing to you, just because you think in your little mind that you are better than that people, you are trash.
Thank you, I couldn't agree more. Well done.
Sorry, but
You're right, you're right.
And I think we're seeing a shift, particularly since November, in society where people are standing more firm and loudly because the discrimination is blatant and out loud and right in front of us. So the time for us to kind of smile and let
And you
things
know-
go has
And you know
passed.
what is the most awful thing? That these people say that they are Christian. And I say, you know something? You are the ticket to go free to hell, because God didn't show us, didn't treat us, didn't say that we have to treat people bad. We have to spread the love, no the hate. So you are not Christian. You are a demon. Yeah, but because I don't understand, and that kind of people, no, I don't want near of me that kind of people.
Yeah. Thank you.
It seems to me the medical profession takes it lying down. They are not protesting enough at all, and they should be the ones who really to educate us.
Well, the AMA, the American Medical Association, and the APA, the American Psychiatric Association, and also the Association of Pediatric Doctors have all come out and said that gender-affirming care is life-saving.
They should do it again and again and again.
Yes,
Every day. Right.
I completely agree. However, they are licensed at the state level. State level politicians, as you know, are very powerful. If, for example, I treat your child and you don't like it, you can report me to the state and I can lose my license. So I can understand from just a personal protection why those professionals are worried.
I may have missed that first part. What percentage of the population actually are trans? I know there's a wide.
You know, I didn't quote that and
Okay,
I didn't look it up.
I'm sure it's really very
Probably.
small.
Oh,
And the thing is that it's not about the trans people per se. This has been used as a political issue to divide us and to just create chaos so that the Republicans can get voted into office.
absolutely.
I probably have a number, it's close to 3% of the population in the world.
Agree.
In the world.
It's very small, yeah.
Okay, you touched on it just a tad, about the percentages and stuff like this. When I was growing up, of course, we never heard about trans people or
Right.
homosexuality. I
You
mean,
probably heard about transvestites.
yes, well, no, not until I was like in college, probably.
I'm trying to remember who the comic was who was always in drag. And even here in
Oh,
Home
yeah,
Coast,
there were
when
quite
they
a
have
few,
those
yeah.
Vegas
Yeah.
reviews,
Well, it
I
was-
want to stand outside and say, you all know that's drag, right?
Yeah, it was, there were quite a few comedians, what, Mel somebody. or-
Yeah.
Yeah. And-
Anyway,
And that was also funny and everything, but what I'm kind of interested in, is this kind of like, and I'm not, I don't know, it's hard to put it to what I'm trying to ask, but do you think that this is just more out in the open now? Kind of like, I mean, even homosexuality until Stonewall, it was like, oh, there's gay people, it's like, seriously. And so is there more now, or just it's open now? Or did people just go through their whole life screwed up?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's what I think.
Yeah, we all had that uncle who lived with his roommate.
Yeah. Well, my daughter, she lives in England, and she has a trans friend. I know him quite well, and he's a person, okay. But anyway, she helped with some West Yorkshire queer stories that they were doing. She interviewed a lot of people, and one of the persons that she interviewed was a woman who was a trans woman who had a life as a man, with marriage, all this other stuff, and finally just couldn't take it anymore. But when medical stuff started investigating him, it turned out he had a uterus. All right, so they were saying it was like an absorbed twin. I mean, have you heard about this person?
I haven't heard about that case in
I'm just
particular,
interested
but
because this is like we've never heard of it, and all of a sudden, hey, I know trans people. It's like, who knew? I mean, I didn't even know there were trans people until fairly recently. But of course, this is just into a political football so that everything else can go, you know, oh, everybody's so worried about what trans athletes, oh my God, they want to play field hockey or something.
at the high school level.
Yeah, like, I'm sure they're just flocking here. I mean, seriously, it's just bullshit.
I was just going to say, about 20 or 25 years ago, I read a book called Middlesex.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Have
yeah.
you heard of it?
I've heard of it, I've not read it myself.
I thought it was a very good book, and it's probably worth reading. It wasn't about trans, but it was about a person that was born with both sexes, basically. So
Yeah,
Middlesex. Very good book, especially if you're interested in history of Detroit and Michigan and different things like that.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you, I appreciate that. Other questions?
One last question. Is your license in jeopardy with the work you do?
Not yet. And to be honest, at this point in my life, it's too important. It's just plain too important to stay silent.
Could you work as a coach instead of a therapist?
I could. Couldn't bill insurance, but I struggle to do that as a professional anyways.
Yeah.
Good question. I have a close family member that's transing right now, and she chooses not to really associate with the family, is kind of shying away from attending family functions because some of the relatives make fun of her and so on. And so how do you handle that? You know, you can't force someone to go somewhere. She is going to counseling, she's doing all the right things, but I just feel like she's so isolated. That's not a good thing in her
Call her.
journey.
Call her and just say, you're okay with me.
Yeah, but to encourage her to do
Absolutely
other things.
not. There's lots of chosen family out there. Tell your family member to come to my house for Gaysgiving, the day after Thanksgiving. Last year was my first one. And that morning, my wife and I were standing in the front yard, and she said, now, let me just get this straight. There's a 6-foot-tall blow-up rainbow turkey in our yard. And I said, yep. And you need to know that we live in the conservatory, which is probably where Hope goes to die. I mean, like, it is so rigid. Hopefully my neighbors aren't here. And she said, and there's 150 rainbow pinwheels in our yard. And I said, yep. And she said, and you've invited every single gay person you know in Palm Coast? And I said, well, yeah. And she said, and you did it out of spite? And I said, yeah. And she said, that tracks. And she just walked off. So Gaysgiving is a thing at my house. So I encourage those folks to find chosen family. If you're born family, and honestly, for people in the cisgender hetero world, if your family's shitty, you have permission. Just because it's blackmail. The way that we breed, you know, we tell people, oh, it's your family. You have to. I'm related to some awful people. So, and they're allowed to be awful at a distance. So call the person and say, I love you. You're perfect. I'd love to see you. You can sit next to me. And I wish it ever would. That would mean a lot.
Well, thank you. That was wonderful.
My pleasure. Thank you.